Hello, Dave. How are you
Hey,
doing?
Lawrence. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Um, Thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with me tonight. And just before we started recording, the thing that occurred to me, we were talking about is falling back in love with life. Just something that occurred to me. But what we're talking about tonight is how the understanding of how the mind works, the three principles, the inside out paradigm, whatever you want to call it, how it helped you and what you saw when you first came upon it, and what you're seeing now. And in part of the conversation, I may share some of my insights about that.
Yeah, been nice.
But yeah, when did you come upon the three principles?
It was in July. It was in July 2013, I think. I think that's when it was. Um, I used to suffer a lot with anxiety and stress and anger, tons and tons of anger. Depression. I suffered with depression on and off since I was 11. But before that, I used to get really, really worried about stuff. So for months on end at the age, like really young ages, I'd stay awake, stressing and worrying about stuff. So I'd always been a worry, I suppose. And I've seen a lot of therapists, taken a lot of drugs, prescription, non-prescription, a lot of drinking, to try and get me out of the state I was in. And yeah, so a lot of therapists, a lot of counsellors, and I had a lot of work done. Spent time in prison for violence after somebody attacked my sister because of my anger and my ego. And yeah, I came across this understanding, these principles, these three principles, came across this understanding, I think it was July 2013. And it was through a lady called Sue Hugenson, who was a lady who had seen for counselling therapy. Seeing therapists at this point every other day. I was on antidepressants. I'd gone through a split up with my wife. I was having an affair. People call it an affair. Fell in love with somebody else. And it got really, really messy. I ended up homeless, ended up living with a customer. Customer thankfully took me in, otherwise I had nowhere to go. I could see how people end up homeless on the streets. And yeah, a lady called Sue. So she started to introduce me to these principles. It was funny the way it came about. She asked me to go and look at some tree work. I went round to have a look at this tree, and there wasn't a tree in a garden. But she just got me there. And I asked her why she'd got me there. And she said because she'd been told that she needed to teach me something. And I said, all right, who's told you this? And she said, the universe. And my language can be quite flavoursome at times. And it was one of those moments where I was like, what the is this? Head nearly at the table, I was like, I don't need any of this hippie stuff. But she was very, very kind. And she seemed very sincere in her offer. And the best decision I ever made in my life was to listen to her. And she started to introduce me to it over a few weeks, and I got it logically. I could see it logically, all right. But she rang me up one day and said, I thought you'd have this by now, Dave. And I can be quite a procrastinator. And if my head is really, really busy, full of thinking, I don't listen. I'm too busy listening to my head rather than listening to somebody else. And I know that's what I've been doing with her. So I took some time off work and self-employed, and I typed into Google Sydney Banks, and I just sat down and listened to Sydney Banks all morning. Took a morning off work, listened to Sid. And there was something in what Sid said that kind of aroused this sense of excitement. And this sense of excitement was totally different to anything I'd experienced over the previous few years. And I had a head full. I was dazed almost, and I just went for a walk. And it was on this walk when I woke up. when I woke up out of my nightmare-like dream state. And it's only recently started to come back to me as to that moment. It was one of the most profound moments of my life. And it was when I was stood, I live in the Lake District, and I went for a walk up a fell called Potter Fell. I don't really pronounce my T's. Potter Fell. And I was overlooking the town where I live near called Kendal, when I was just staring, head full of thinking, trying to make sense of what has just been explained to me, told to me, or what I'd just listened to. And what happened for me was, as I was just stood on this fell side watching, a crow flew past me at eye level. And as it flew past me, it looked at me. It glanced at me, it turned its head and looked at me. And I just got this wave of thought, this full rush of thought that ran through my head. And these thoughts went along the line of, that crow has seen you. It's acknowledged your presence. In order for it to acknowledge your presence, there has to be an intelligence behind it. That intelligence is the same intelligence that is creating my experience of thought. And it was in that moment I just saw that everything is thought. Everything is thought. And it was like, I saw it wasn't just for me, it wasn't just for humans, but it was for all life. That for all life, for the crow, that crow was using thought to was meant to have intelligence. You had to have awareness. And I just saw everything is the same. It is everything. Every one moment, that crow that flew off and it carried on with its own life, that moment changed my life up until this moment now, and I perceive forever. I can't see how it can't be forever. And I've started to see this a lot, that Sid always talked about these as being universal principles. And that's kind of what I see. I see them, that thought is a universal principle, not just a universal principle for all humanity, but for everything that is organic, that is a being. I do a lot of work with trees, and it's been hard work having this understanding, then working with trees, because I no longer see them as being plants that are dumb. I know that when I reduce a tree, it has awareness. And within the principles, we call this awareness, consciousness. So if I reduce a tree, I make it smaller, I see that this tree becomes aware of it. And then it also knows how to grow, how to react. It sticks out lots of what we call epiphany growth. Lots of new, fresh growth comes from this tree, and it strives to get back to its original shape, and it does it. 99.9% of the times, they do it. They get back to this beautiful shape that they previously were. So I can see that within all life, there are these principles. There is consciousness within the tree, the plant, the woody plant, without a brain. The tree doesn't have a brain like what we have, yet within it, it has consciousness. And it also has an awareness as to what to do. When I remove a branch, it heals. It heals like what I do. And it sticks out epicomic. It knows when to fruit. It knows when to drop its leaves. And the more I started to look into that, I started to type in intelligence of trees. And I started to find out that things like aspen and maples, if they get a pest species on them, like a caterpillar, they release a pheromone. So they are aware of the caterpillar. They also know what to do. They have this built-in system for something that puts these caterpillars off, and they release a pheromone, and these caterpillars will get off and go and wander off and go and find something else to munch on. But as that tree's released this pheromone, then the next tree starts to release its pheromone. It becomes aware of this pheromone released by its neighbor. So it's like there's this interconnected intelligence that is going on between the trees. And I find that fascinating. I find it absolutely fascinating, and it's something that I've started to notice more and more about. I was looking the other day at a tree that had fallen over, and its root plate, all its roots were vertical, and it was a large tree, and it's blown over, so it was lay horizontal. But then the branches that were running along were once branches, were now fully grown trees in their own right, growing off this one tree. And it just showed me that, I mean, we talk about resilience, that human beings have this ability to bounce back, to be resilient, to continue to live, and to continue to thrive and strive. And I saw that as much as we talk about resilience being built into the human, resilience is a fact of life. As much as thought and consciousness is a fact of life, so is the ability, so is resilience. And I like that. And I think it's fascinating, because I think sometimes this paradigm, the principles can become a really human psychological thing that we talk to humans. I can't talk to. I would love to be able to explain this to my dog. I really, really would. When he's driving me nuts, I wish I could just explain to him, what you're experiencing, mate, is your thinking. No, it's not Pebble pissing you off. It's your thinking, mate. Just go and do something else. But I can't. So I mean, we obviously the only thing we can share this with is other humans. But I like seeing it outside of the psychology. The psychology. When I say the psychology, it's all psychological. But I mean the practicing psychology, the therapeutic psychology. I love when I see the principles existing outside of humans. I love seeing it, the intelligence of what we call mind, God, Allah, whatever anybody wants to call it. I'm not bothered. But I love seeing the intelligence of that running through life, coursing through life. The interaction, the complete entanglement of life on this planet that we, for some reason, seem to have become so separate from. For some reason, we have completely sprinted off ahead of so many of the rest of the life on the planet in terms of technological advances and our abilities to come up with new ideas and create. I don't know why that is, but we have. But in doing that, it's like we've created a separate entity as the human race that has created this human ego, and we've separated ourselves from everything that is. We think we're bigger than it, we think we're better than it, but we're humbled every single time there's an earthquake. I live in the Lake District, and this year we've just been absolutely destroyed by floods. You know, nature has this ability to completely humble us, bring us back down to earth, and deal with the earthquake out in Nepal. Sorry about that. Has that come up on your screen, my message? It just has this ability to humble us. But I don't know, it used to cause me a lot of fear, did that. That in itself, before coming across this understanding, a lot of my fears were ecological based fears. What we're doing to this planet. If I have kids, are they going to be growing up in a world where the sea level is rising like meters, and are they going to get to see the beautiful things that I get to see? As I know in my 35 years that I've existed, 36 years that I've existed on this earth, I've lived in the same area, and I've seen my environment change. I've seen plants and animals that I always used to recognize as being common, no longer common. And now if I see them, I'm like, oh, bloody hell, look at that. It's a sparrow, a starling. You know, things we used to take for granted, and we're everywhere. I see that than not. And that in itself used to cause me so much stress. Used to really worry me. And silly things keep people awake at night. And that was one of the things that used to keep me awake at night. But no, I've become far more accepting of life. Accepting that there are certain things that I can help with change do. But there's also stuff that is outside of my hands, and I used to worry about stuff that was outside of my hands that I can't change. Yeah, the environment was definitely one of them. But yeah, I love it. I love it. I love the power of simply seeing it when I do see it. I mean, for myself, when I see it. And these last few months, I've had one of the most turbulent times of my life. I've been up, down. I have been completely humbled by thought. I thought I had it licked. I thought I had it nailed, this stuff. I understand these principles. I had such a massive awakening. I became arrogant. I thought, you know what? Nothing can get me down. Nothing can get me down. It's all thought. How can thought get me down? I know it's thought, so how can it get me down? This last few months has brought me to my knees at times. It has been, I've sat and cried. I've got stuff going on that I never expected in my life to be happening. You and I just had a conversation just before we pressed record on this. And we're saying it's funny not to know. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what life has in store for us. What's happening to me now is certainly one of those things that I never in a million years ever expected or planned for or had in my life plan. But it's been fascinating. Some of the best learning I've ever had in my life. To have this understanding that I'm living in a thought-created reality, that my whole experience of everything is this formless power that is far, far more in control than what I am. And I say me, that almost sounds like I'm separating it from myself. But the ego me. And yeah, it's been fascinating to go through the pain. It's been fascinating to go through tears. It's been fascinating to go through excitement. To have this absolute gut feeling that of something that was so, I would have followed that gut feeling in the past. It would have been, I would have probably called it wisdom. I don't know what wisdom is. I see it as thought. I feel like sometimes we can take wisdom and make it a thing, but everything's thought. And I would have followed this gut feeling that I've had coursing throughout this whole time. I would have followed it. And it wouldn't have ended up where I am now, which is the complete and opposite of what my gut feeling was telling me has actually happened. So that's been really interesting as well, to watch the nature of thought and to be beaten up by it, to have been punched in the face by it so many times, and to experience it. But there's been this kind of buoyancy. There's been a buoyancy behind it that's just kind of just been underneath it all, whereby as much as I have suffered and I've cried and I've got pissed off, there's been this thing that's just kind of been, you're all right. You're all right, Dave. This doesn't last forever. You know it doesn't last forever. And to just kind of go in and out of all the pain and then the excitement and then the worry and the grief and the sadness and the guilt, to go in and out of all that stuff like a flow. It's been fascinating. fascinating. Whereas one time I kind of liken it now because I'm a tree surgeon too. In the past, before I had this understanding, I'd climb a tree, I'd walk out into a branch and it'd be terrifying, a metaphorical, frightening branch. And when I fell from that branch, I'd hit the floor and I wouldn't get up and I would just stay there and whine around in agony. But since I've got this understanding, it's like I've now got a rope and harness on. So I can climb the same tree. I can still walk out on the branch and it's still scary. But then when I fall, I'm caught. There's this thing I can just swing into the tree. It's not that it's not terrifying, but there's this like this anchor system that is stopping me from falling and hitting the floor. And it's nothing that I've done. That's what I love about it, because I am so lazy. If I have to do something, I'm not happy about it. But the fact that I didn't do anything to end up like that. All I realized was that everything's thought. Everything that I'm ever experiencing is this formless, infinite potential. That is the intelligence behind everything. That is as natural as the universe itself. It's its essence, almost like it's its essence. To have the essence of consciousness and the inseparable nature of consciousness and thought, whereby you can't experience thought without consciousness, and likewise you can't experience consciousness without thinking about it. To have that and then just know that that is what is going on. There's this it's just this universe at work doing its thing, and it's coursing through nature, and that is simply that I'm a part of this whole, I like to call nature. I always used to call God nature, and I still see the same thing. It's all nature, and I love that. I am nature by mind. I love my nature. Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much you said there. It's beautiful that before you came upon the principles, before you had that insight and the crow said hello,
Yeah.
You were afraid of life.
Terrified. There was one bigger thing that I was afraid of, and I was afraid of me.
Yeah.
I was terrified. I was the scariest human being I'd ever come across in my life. I was unpredictable. I would do stupid things. I'd do violent things. I'd do angry things. I wasn't predictable even to myself. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was very scared. And this is one of the things I've done talking in prisons and stuff. And one of the things I talk to with the lads in the prisons is there's a lot of ego in the prisons. And a lot of my ego was one that I was a hard man. I used to go to the gym. I used to be a big lad, and I used to do a lot of confrontation. I used to be very confronting. And I see it clear as day, the reason why I was like that. And that was because I was scared. I lived in a very, very, very scared state. I was scared of other people. I was terrified of the future. Scared of what people did for me, thought of me. And I used to have an awful lot of ideas that I thought that I needed to be. One of them was a hard man. One of them was a friend and family protector. I'd always sort out all my friends and family's problems. Again, that was one that I was scared. I wanted people to love me. So I thought that if I was able to go and sort out all my friends and family's problems, that it would look like Dave's a really good man and they would love me. And one of the things that I find really funny about this understanding is that I don't help people like what I used to as much. I do a lot more stuff for me now because I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need the congratulations, because I'm happy with me. It's not to say I don't help people. If I see somebody broken down side the road, I stop and I help them. If I find a hitchhiker, I stop, I help them. Let's talk to people on the streets. I'll do my bit. But I don't. Whereas in the past, if I really didn't want to help somebody, I would feel the need to still go and help them to prove that I'm such a good person. I don't feel the need to do that anymore. I can turn around and say, no, not today. I'll probably maybe see how I feel tomorrow, or I'll have a word with them. They might be able to help you. I feel far more in control of my own life, far more in control of me. Although the more I see of life, the more I actually understand I'm probably not in control of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose to be in control, I've let go of the reins. So when I'm saying I'm in control, I've actually let go of the reins. I've become a lot more accepting of life, rather than trying to control everything outside of me to make me feel happy, to change my financial situation, to bring me peace, and go and help my friends to make them experience, to give me love or whatever, buy a house to make me happy, and all this stuff. I realized I didn't need to change the world. It's all coming from me. There's nothing to change for me to experience peace. I don't need to change anything out there. It's all in here. And that in itself was so freeing. Just not having to change the world to make myself happy. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fear, Lawrence. It's not to say I don't still experience it. Still experience it.
Yeah, and everything you described, you said recent things going on, not being afraid of life, not being afraid to ride the roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
That for me is, the thing I said at the start about falling back in love with life, or seeing life for what it is coming through us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly what I always struggled with love. I think I've experienced a lot of love in my life. But it was what you said just then, Lawrence. It's that falling in love. I totally fell in love with life. And falling in love with life, I actually fell in love with me. For the first time ever, I went from the opposite end of one end of the spectrum of fear to the other end of the spectrum of love for the same thing. And if somebody had said to me, you know what, Dave, you will find something that will absolutely change your life in one moment, I wouldn't have believed it could be possible. You're going to go through a shitload of heartache and pain, Dave. But one day, the crow's going to fly past and your life's going to change in that one moment. And in that one moment, you're not going to look back. Your life will be unrecognizable. It's unrecognizable to my family. I came back that day and my family thought I'd been on drugs. A few weeks later, they thought I'd joined a cult. And they thought I was mental. They really did think I'd gone off on one when I all of a sudden came out of, I was suicidal. And so I went from being suicidal, and whenever I was home late, my sister was ringing me up, going, where are you at? Where are you at? You okay? You okay? And if I didn't answer the phone, well, Christ almighty, they were out looking for me at times. They'd come out searching for me. So I went from that to do you know what? I'm all right. And I knew I was all right. It wasn't just this kind of, wasn't just like this whimsical, I'm all right. No, I'm okay. I'm all right. It was magic. It was magic, Lawrence.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that we have these experiences. You were looking in this direction. You were blessed in a way that it did come when maybe you really needed it. But I do know lots of people that then they start turning it into something.
Yep.
Or someone watching this is that they might say, oh, I want some of that. I want to be saved from XYZ in my head. I want this inner transformation. I want to fall back in love with life again. what would you say to anyone that just maybe is searching, maybe is looking for an answer? Where's the best place to look?
The one place nobody likes being told it is. Yeah, that all too simple place. So I was speaking last night in the group. This last was just like, I'm waiting for this big epiphany. Why? Just in thinking that you are creating pressure upon yourself to experience something, and pressure is the opposite of what we're trying to kind of get people to experience, allow people to experience. And I know myself, when I came across this, I had no expectation. I didn't. I seem to find the people who are trying to get it really don't. They continuously seem to be unsatisfied with what they have, the level that they're at. When I really look at it, there is absolutely nothing to get. It's all there. We're not talking about something that is separate from us. It's not something that we catch, like a virus or a cold. It's not something that is given to us like a gift or a present. It's there. It's what all we're ever pointing towards is the nature of how we work. That's it. So it's not like we're giving somebody something. We're all already it. We are all conscious thinking minds. And as long as any human being is walking around and is alive, then that's what's happening. There is something that can be really, really special and powerful for people when they see that. When they see it isn't the outside world that's creating their experience, it's simply bringing them things to think about. Then, for me, that's the most profound thing I've ever been aware of, ever been brought to my light at this moment. And who knows how this is going to change? Who knows if some people might get really upset about this, but somebody may see this deeper than what Sid saw. There's always that potential for people to see more. You can always see more. I'd like to think I'm going to be open-minded enough to listen, if that ever was to come about. But I think if I was to say anything to somebody who is trying to get it, don't. Which in itself is bloody hard work. Don't try and get it. But I have to try and figure out. So don't think about it. Don't think about it. No, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not thinking about it. And listen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Just listen. And listen to what's being said, and stop listening to our heads. Because like I said earlier on, I'm a bugger. If I'm listening to my head, I am not listening to who's speaking. And I can still do that. I can be such a bugger for it. And it's beyond the word. It's like words are noises that we use to communicate a message. But those noises, if I say tree, everybody knows what a tree is, but that noise isn't the actual woody being that grows from the earth. It's a noise to describe it, yet we associate the word so deeply with what the message we're trying to convey, that people listen to the words and think it's in the words, but it's so far beyond the words. What is thought? We use the word thought, and we have this idea of what thought is. Thoughts is stuff that runs through my head. We don't see that it's this invisible thing that we can't hold, we can't touch, we can't dissect it, we can't weigh it, we can't see it, we can't measure it. It's this thing, but we say the word thought and then people go, oh, it's thought. But it's this ultimately infinitely intelligent, formless thing that is creation itself. And when I love what it says in the Bible about God is creation, and then the Buddhists talk about the God within, and I love that connection because I see that thought is creation. And if thought is creation and we are thinking, then what does that make us? It kind of, in my thinking, it kind of points us towards what the Buddhists are talking about, that God is within us. If you want to call it God, I mean, even people have associations with that word, you know, it's mind, whatever. It's just this creative thing. So there's nothing to do, there's nothing to get. But the more we try and get it, the further away we seem to take ourselves.
What you said there, it's that connection to the source. What you said about being open-minded to listening, connecting to that source that's within us, but that we are also connected to all around us.
Yeah.
You talk beautifully about nature, as in, it is that illusion of separation, isn't it?
It is an illusion of separation.
Identify with the ego, with the self, me and my problems. That's where we know we're looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that for myself, when I am experiencing what I experience, when I say I experience my feeling of connection, which is always going to come from my thinking, you know, whether it's visible or invisible, whether I see the thinking or not, it's this power of thought. Ultimately, like, it's not this just the cognitive stuff that we are so aware of. It's the stuff behind that. There's more to it than that. You know, it's the power behind all that that's hiding in the background that we're not consciously aware of, but there's this sense of. And I know that when I'm in that place where I do feel that connection to everything, and you know what, it can be the funniest things, it can be anywhere. It can be when I'm walking around in nature, but I've also experienced it when I've been in the middle of town. I've experienced it when I'm talking to somebody else. I've experienced it. I don't always experience it. Christ, far from it. But when I do, it's beautiful. It's just this beautiful feeling that I could describe it to you, and you'd maybe say it's similar to what I experienced. I'm sure everybody has their own experience of that. But again, simply to have an awareness of it is powerful. Simply to have an awareness that it's there. You know, that's it. You know, it's there. And it's not a whimsical, fluffy idea. No, it's there. We are it. It's always there. Even when it's like, I don't know, I'm feeling spiritual today. No, we're always spiritual. We can't escape that point. You know, it depends on what people have connotations of spiritual, but my idea of spiritual is, I love how Sid describes it, it's just formlessness. And that's what we are. We are formless, infinite potential, experience creating beings. So even when I'm beating the hell out of somebody, I am still a spiritual being. Do you know what I mean? I'm still spiritual. I'm still using the principles in order to kick the crap out of somebody, to defraud somebody, to take a load of drugs, to go and rob an old granny, push somebody over, whatever. You know, we can't escape this point. They're always working. They always have worked. And I love that simplicity. I love the simplicity, but it's a shame that in that simplicity it can be so difficult for people to see. Yeah, I failed my maths twice because I couldn't see the simplicity in maths. I thought it had to be harder.
Yeah.
And it's a very similar thing to that. When we stop analysing it and thinking it can't be that simple, and we just stop when we look at it, we can see that it is that simple. No, it really is that simple. When I went out to Nepal, I went out with Rudy and Jenny, and I took such learnings from that. I by far came away the winner in terms of learning compared to what I took out. It was. I remember we went into this village just outside of Kathmandu. It had been absolutely destroyed, and white boy here, Western boy, British boy, going to go out there and save all these people. Going to go and do them a bit, help them out. They need help. These people need help. Look at them, poor buggers. They've had all the houses knocked down. They have nothing. They are going to be suffering. We went around this village, and this village by this point was full of bricks about that big, stacked so neatly, so beautifully neatly, and buildings still being dismantled, which people were still living in. And there was this building made of bamboo and corrugated iron. And I remember I knocked on the wall. There was a man sat in there, and there was 15 beds out with mosquito nets and a gap of about that big running all the way around it. So it wasn't airtight, windtight, rainproof. And before I went out, I spoke to a couple of big outdoor shops, Merrill and Mammoth. The headquarters are based in the Lake District where I live, so I went around them and said, I'm going down to Nepal. Do you want to donate anything? And I had about 400 quid's worth of kit in this bag, like decent waterproof jackets and decent outdoor wear stuff. And I've been waiting for somebody to give this stuff to. Couldn't have given it to a better person. And what happened was I walked into this thing, and there was this man sat there, and I asked him his name, and I can't pronounce his name. And I said, where's your house? He said, oh, my house gone, pointed to a pile of bricks. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. And we got talking. And the average wage in Nepal is $2 a day. And I had 400 quid's worth of kit in my hand. And I just went up to this man and I said, I'd really like you to have this. And he didn't look at it, he went, no. And I said, please, an awful lot of money. Awful lot of money. You sell it. And he said, no. And he put his hand on his heart and he just said to me, he said, we have everything we need, thank you. And I looked at that man and I realized in that moment, yeah, you do. You have nothing in terms of physical commodity. Your house is gone. Sure, you're not very rich, but you really do have everything you need. You have this peace about you. You are smiling. You are happy. And that man lived what we talk, as do most Nepalese. He lived what we talk. Nobody had told him it. He just was it. He was resilient. He was peaceful. He was beautiful. And that gift that he gave me was far greater than the gift that I left sat down next to him. I popped it down next to him and I walked away and I cried my eyes out. I just cried. That man taught me a massive, valuable lesson that people do not need saving. I can't save anybody. I can point them in a direction, but it's up to them to hear it. Can't give it away. You can't. Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that man in 1 minute. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, beautiful experience.
And it comes when you least expect it.
Yeah. Don't know what's around the corner, do you? We don't know what's around the corner.
That makes me think, that's we talked also before we started recording about not having a plan, and you mentioned it. Imagine if I knew how my life was going to play. I had a diary. This is everything that's going to happen in your life. The highs and lows. This is your Outlook calendar for the next, I'll say, 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, life is that mystery.
Oh, the next 4 days. Christ almighty.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I won't mind that.
Yeah.
But it's just being open to it, isn't it? And that, you know, that's beautiful what you said. It's just, we can learn from other people, from the least expected sources, particularly if we are open to it. Because I would say, what, you know, the place you were coming from, what you did by going to Nepal, you were connecting with your fellow human being in very different circumstances. But that is available in our day-to-day lives. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was something that actually brought tears to my eyes actually the other week when I was in London. And do you know what it was? It was something so simple. I watched a man on a tube tap a woman on her shoulder and say, "Would you like to sit down?" And she said no. And he went and sat back down. And I just saw kindness and love from one stranger to the next. That's all it was. It was a simple, "Would you like to sit down?" And that brought tears to my eyes. I thought, it doesn't take much. You know, it really, really doesn't take much to change worlds. It doesn't. It's, you know, I've properly gone from living from the fear end of the spectrum of experience to I experience a lot more love. And I've experienced an awful lot more love. And I know that when I experience love, my life is easier. It's easier for other people. Life is so much better, Lawrence. It's so much better. I could never thank Sue enough. I told her I could never repay her. The only way I can ever repay her is to make her proud. That's the only thing I could do. That's all I said I could try and make you proud to. And she said, "I'm already proud of you, Dave." She's an angel, is that woman?
Yeah.
She saved my life. She saved my life.
And that's that sharing. I think that's a nice way to finish, really, what you just said about, you know, loving is easier. And the fact that she shared something with you, you've shared it with other people, you've touched other people's lives, you've learned things from other people. It's kind of contagious in the nice way.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is, Lawrence.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being so frank, open, and yeah, imagine where we'll be in a year's time. My outlook doesn't go that far, but it's being open to the possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah.
Falling back in love with life, deeper and deeper.
Yeah. It is. It's that acceptance, isn't it, that we don't know, and there's so much power in not knowing. So much peace in not knowing. Kind of takes the pressure off. Beautiful.
Hi. Just going to say goodbye to anyone watching this, and thank you to anyone who's listened to Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Dave, for sharing your stories.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks very much, man. Good speaking.